Today I had the privilege of talking to the pet waste millionaire, EJ McCoy, who owns two multi-million-dollar businesses. Only 9% of businesses in America do $1 million in sales in a year. All right, so we have the pet waste millionaire, EJ McCoy. Thanks for jumping on the call with us. So really the couple of reasons for this call is to number one, so we are looking at taking our business to the franchisor level. And obviously you have a ton of experience with that. I'm a big proponent on seeking advice from people that are where I want to be. And you have that knowledge. So I am super honored, and it's a privilege to be able to have you on for these questions. Normally I'm the one getting drilled with questions, but today I'll be drilling you. So I appreciate you coming on.
I love to give my opinions and my experience. So I'm here and available.
So maybe real quick, just like quick kind of snippet of like who you are, like and where you're at in like business and everything. So just so that the viewers can kind of get to know you.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm EJ McCoy. I'm co-founder and CEO of two companies. Two companies. Last year, we were one of our companies. Scoop Soldiers was an Inc. 5000 company, one of the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies in the country. That's Scoop Soldiers. We're a pet waste removal business. We started back in 2011. My business partner and I started franchising in 2019. We've got a national footprint from Seattle to Orlando and poop scooping in a mix of both franchisees and corporate operations. And then separate from that, we've got Chorby, which is the other company that we co-founded, my business partner and I. And Chorby's kind of all other things home services. Outside of pet waste removal, the concept of Chorby is to do everything from lawn mowing all the way to plumbing, pool cleaning, sprinklers, you name it. We want to kind of dominate all home services, ultimately utilizing technology to be able to consolidate for clients their home services kind of in the future into one app, into one service, into one company.
Awesome. Very cool.
That's true. I would say one more business I've got, but I'm not a big part of, is Executive Lawn Care. That's a local brand as well that actually directly competes with Chorby. Not something that I directly am involved with, but that's another business that we launched in 2016, kind of separate from Chorby and Scoop Soldiers.
Very cool. Awesome. All right. So as far as these questions go, so I think before we jump into kind of like the nitty and gritty ones, can you just maybe share like what the difference is between a franchisee and a franchisor?
Right, absolutely. So everybody's heard of the term franchising, it seems, at least in my experience the last 4, 5, 6 years. As I've talked about it, I've actually been a student of franchising for the better part of my adult life, the last 20 years in one way or another. But I've learned over the years that everybody's kind of got a different level of understanding of what a franchise is. Everybody kind of knows the general concept, but a lot of people, there's a lot of preconceived thoughts and opinions on it as well. So at the end of the day, you've got a relationship of a franchisor and then a franchisee. And your franchisor is the company that's built systems and processes, and they've set up a business opportunity to be able to operate their brand in other locations. They're the franchisor. Most famous franchisor is McDonald's and Ray Kroc, but there's literally thousands upon thousands of franchisors out there at everything from multi-billion-dollar businesses to emerging franchise brands that maybe have no franchisees yet. And everything in between. So that's a franchisor. And then your franchisee is the person that's operating the brand, usually within limits. Like as a franchisee, you're using somebody else's business model. You've bought into somebody else's business model. You're operating your business, but you're using their experience, you're using their brand, you're using their systems and processes, and you're usually paying some kind of a royalty and or a flat rate to be able to get those benefits. So that's kind of the difference in franchisor-franchisee relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great breakdown for each of those. So definitely thank you for that. So what are the necessary steps in order to take a business to the franchisor level, and what legality steps do you need to take in order to become a franchisor?
Right. So the first part of that question is a really good question. You've got to be a well-oiled machine. or at least as well-oiled of a machine as you can have. You've got to have systems, processes in place that are fairly ironclad. The more complicated your business is, the more ironclad that has to be. We're fortunate in pet waste removal. We're scooping poop. It's a naturally simple business. Now, there is absolutely a right and a wrong way to scoop poop. It's just like mowing lawns. You know this. Anybody can mow a yard in theory. Not anybody can mow a yard commercially and professionally. It's the same thing in pet waste removal. And so we teach somebody very quickly how to be that expert. When you're in that franchise, what you get, or you've got to be able to teach your system, teach the thing that made you successful in your business to not just a handful, but dozens, if not hundreds, of franchisees that are relying on you and your experience. And so you've got to be ready for that. The second half of that question is, what are the legalities to it? And that is probably the biggest challenge. There is a lot of legality to it. There is a lot of regulation, especially in our types of businesses, home services, not the most heavily regulated businesses. And so we don't deal with a lot of regulation naturally in our industry. When you get into the franchise business, you've got to follow a lot of rules. You can only say, and you can only offer and say certain things as you're offering your business opportunity, which is another piece to it. And I know I'm probably getting a little off of your question. I tend to do that, but you've got to recognize as a franchisor or an aspiring franchisor that it's literally a whole new business. It's a whole new industry. It's not, hey, I'm really good at doing lawn care or landscaping and taking care of the clients, and I've got really good systems and processes. That gets you ready to franchise. But then you've got to recognize that this is not, I'm franchising my business and it's just going to be an added service, right? You're adding a service. It's not that. It's a whole new business. It's a whole new industry. It's a whole new business model in the sense of how you make money and where the value in your business is. And that's oftentimes forgotten when people go and they say, I'm ready to franchise. They don't realize how much more work that's going to be. And so that's why you have such it's why you have so few aspiring franchisors really break out, because they go through the legal process, but then when that legal process is over, they realize, and we did this too, they realize, holy crap, like this isn't just us continuing to sell poop scooping. This is us selling a business opportunity for poop scooping.
Right.
And a lot of times people will franchise their business because they think that's the next step. That's the next step of success, but they don't realize that it's a whole new industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Which actually leads me into the next question. So obviously you've built that successful business, you've got the well-oiled machine, and you're taking it to now, instead of an end buyer or a retail buyer, you're now shifting over to a business owner and a partner, a business partner that you're going to spend years, maybe decades together. How is that transition, and what is that like shifting over to that?
Well, we're still in the middle of all that in a lot of ways, because so at Scoop Soldiers today, and this has been a shift that happened in the last 12 months. 12 months ago, 60% of our business and the work we did was done by corporate operations, and 40% was done by franchisees. That flipped in the last 12 months to where now 60+%, in the coming months, it'll be closer to 70-75%. But 60+% of our revenues are generated in franchisee businesses, and 40% of our revenues are corporate operations. So we're really in the middle of that, and I like the mix. It's unique. Most franchisors do not have a heavy corporate presence, right? Most of them, they've just got one or two locations, one geographic area that they serve corporately. That's kind of like their model, their testing ground. And then they've got all franchisees. We're unique in that we are right alongside our franchisees. We're building a corporate operation right alongside them. We're running our corporate ops, whether it be in Seattle or whether it be in North Carolina or in Houston. We're running those corporate ops right alongside franchisees in Austin or Dallas-Fort Worth or Arizona.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you guys are out in the weeds, as we say it, in the lawn care industry.
we're right in it with them. We're learning with them. We provide an enormous amount of support for our franchisees. That's a major selling point for our system. We're handling all of the client care for them. Virtually all of the new accounts or sales. They're obviously boots on the ground to whatever their skill sets and their desires are in their market. But we are handling all of the digital, all of the kind of residential and online lead generation.
Yeah. Awesome.
So that way they can just focus solely on building their local business, making sure the job's done right. I always say keeping butts in the trucks, people out scooping the yards.
Yeah. So are you like answering all of the incoming calls too from like sales and everything like that and supporting them in that way?
Yeah, that's part of the support. And so that's part of the business model, and that's part of the franchise, the monthly, or really weekly, it's pulled weekly, but the weekly royalty. A lot of that, we're providing them all that support, even accounts receivable. Granted, we require credit cards, so that makes it somewhat easy, but we're handling all the billing. We're handling all of that for them.
Yeah.
It's a hefty franchise, or it's a hefty royalty for that, though. I mean, combined between our administrative fee and our royalty, it's 16% of revenues. At the same time, it works. We've got franchisees that are regularly wanting to expand their area. In fact, a lot of our expansion in the last 12 months has been internal franchisees expanding their territories, which is what you always want. That's a good sign of a successful model, that your franchisees are wanting to expand.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, that's really good. So
one thing I'll mention, Will, and I think it covered a question you asked a second ago, but you mentioned counsel and how you believe that that's a key trait in success. And so no doubt you'll have success as you seek out the counsel. That's one of the key things too, though, as you look to franchise your business, is hiring the right organization. It's not just your local lawyer that sets your business up is going to franchise you. And if you have a lawyer that does, in other words, it's a specialization. You've got to use lawyers and consultants that specialize in franchising. If you're dealing with a lawyer who's just saying, "Oh yeah, I can do that," be very careful. They need to specialize in franchising. Both the lawyer and the legal aspect is one half of what you pay for when you build your franchise opportunity. The other half of that is the consulting organizations that are going to help you build your operations manual and your franchise disclosure document. And both of those are highly specialized documents that not just anybody can do. Even though you'll hear stories all day long about lawyers who say, "Oh, I can build you an FDD." I would shy away from that. You want to go and talk and hire the experts.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, that's really good knowledge. So I'm curious, like, because we've kind of thought about the different paths and everything, and so like, why not go the route of just licensing your services and systems and processes instead of like actually slapping like the brand logo on that business, if that makes sense?
Well, first off, if you're licensing your system, you can still have your logo. You can still use your brand, build your brand that way. So if your question is, how come you don't license your business opportunity and your brand, at least that's what I would want to do, and I can answer to that, versus franchise. And I actually literally just had a conversation with my attorney, my business attorney, not my franchise attorney, about licensing, because I was actually looking at, for Shorby, specifically the pool industry, I was looking at licensing for that industry because it's unique. All home service businesses are not the same. Pool industry is unique to the plumbing industry, which is unique to the lawn and landscape industry. And so I'm not trying to fit everything into a specific model at Shorby. And so I'm looking at licensing. And essentially what I learned very quickly in about a 20-minute conversation with my lawyer is that licensing just gives you a lot less control, period. You just don't have, which might be why you're thinking, well, you wouldn't want your name on it. You probably wouldn't. You might not would, because you don't have a lot of control. And so that's why I personally am probably going to continue to veer away from licensing, is I like to have the control, especially because I want the brand name. And so speaking to that, why do I want the brand name? Well, part of it's ego. If I'm being completely honest and self-aware, some of it's ego. I want a big brand, right? But also part of it is because I believe that is the future of home services. and frankly, the future of all business. Brands matter. Granted, right now, even today, out of all of our Scoop Soldiers or Chorby clients, a good percentage of our clients, I'm completely aware, they don't even know what the name of the company is. You know, they have a poop scooping company. They don't know the name of it. It just bills their card every Tuesday, and that's that. But at the same time, over time, and as technology, as digital becomes more and more common, and as the generations flow, if you will, over the next decade and 2 decades, brand will matter far more. And there will be a consolidation in our industries, in the home services industries. Technology is going to dictate that, and when that happens, but there will be a consolidation, and brand is going to matter. Size is going to matter. It's not to say that all the small guys are going to be gone. Not at all. They'll still be here, just like you have small restaurants. You have mom and pop restaurants, but you also have national and multinational chains. You don't have any national, really, and multinational chains in various home services industries. That will change, I believe, in the coming years, and that's where brand will matter.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think technology is going to be huge on that too.
It is. And I could do an entire podcast with you specifically about technology and my take on technology and the future of technology in these industries and how none of that's happened yet.
Yeah.
I mean, we technology has not been pioneered and has not been revolutionized in home services yet. Yeah. Lots of people, lots of money, big businesses and small businesses alike are all trying to figure that out, but it hadn't been figured out yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so new franchisee comes along, says, "Hey, EJ, I want in," right?
Yeah.
Can you walk me through the process and what the training looks like after you've vetted them and say, "Hey, this is going to be a great partner, this is a great candidate, let's set them up for success"? How do we take somebody like that, and what type of training do you put them through to get them up to par of, like, you know, the systems, the procedures, and just everything that goes into running the business, you know?
Right. Absolutely. Good question. So first off, you have to go through a pretty in-depth process. Once you express interest as that you're interested in buying into the opportunity as a franchisee, once you've expressed that interest, we have a gentleman who takes them through the entire process of making sure that they're qualified financially, making sure that, you know, there's literally it's literally a checklist and a process. It goes back to that operating procedure. I personally did not develop it, so I can't get into the details directly, honestly, but there is a set operating procedure that you go through, and towards the end of it, you do a founder's call. So that's where you're introduced to me, in some cases, me and my business partner and co-founder. And then from there, you do what we call a Meet the Troops Day, otherwise known as a Discovery Day, where you're really presented the opportunity of the business. Once you're done with that, it is really kind of decision time. And there's certain legalities and certain signatures and whatnot, but we're awarding you a territory. It's not a sales process per se. It is, but it isn't. It's an interesting dynamic because, like you said, you're going to be with this. Our franchise agreement is a 10-year agreement, so we're making a business partnership, a relationship for 10 years when they sign a franchise agreement. So that happens. Once they sign franchise agreement, they pay a franchise fee. And I think right now it's $39,500 per territory. Started out, I think, at $30,000 in 2019. We've gone up each year on that franchise fee. And so that franchise fee covers a lot of different things as far as is for the franchisor. So you pay your franchise fee, and then from there, for us, it's about a 90-day launch. From the time you sign to the time you're launching your new business, it's about 90 days. And in that 90 days, you're having weekly meetings. We're walking you through a very set system of setting up your business for success. Everything from getting your LLC set up and approved with the state, getting your bank account set up, getting your technology set up, all of those things. Then there's a marketing. You do your business plan. We review your business plan with you. We review your marketing plan with you. And all of this leading up to what we call boot camp. And boot camp's like right before your launch. And boot camp is that training. It's 40 hours or so, might be a little less, but it's 40 hours or so of training on how to run a business. all the technology, the dispatching, the routing, all of that, hiring, how we hire, what we hire, the approach we take when we hire, the culture at which we hire, the questions we ask, you name it. And depending on the franchisee, depending on their savvy, depending on their interest, depending on where they're strong and where they're weak, and where they're confident, all that factors into how we're trained. And then from there, you've got launch. And launch is when we're traveling to them and we are launching. We're providing service, begin scooping. I should also mention that boot camp involves going out and doing actual scooping and learning, just as you would teach your technicians. You're going through training just as you would if you're a scoop technician. We have what's called War Daddy University, which is, I'll never forget, my business partner called me in like 2017. He's like, EJ, I just watched something about Hamburger University and McDonald's. And this is what's missing. We've got to put in place a Hamburger University type training for scooping. Yes, it's easy, just like making a hamburger is easy, but there's a set system at how you scoop a yard. And so we developed War Daddy University. We wouldn't have been able to franchise without War Daddy University. We had no system and process in it. It was, before that, it was basically taking a guy around scooping poop with the most senior guy, just like you probably do with lawn mowing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I really like that idea of creating the university, because that's Training is key when it comes to wanting to be a franchisor. That is literally what your prospective franchisees are literally buying a boxed up, hopefully as much of a business in a box as possible. And so training has to be key in that. And let me tell you, we're not perfect in training, not even close. In fact, depending on the day, sometimes I feel like we suck at it, but we fail forward. And so we're always, and what was solid training 2 and 3 years ago has to be revamped, especially as you grow. Yeah. Especially in client care for us, handling the additional clients. Right. Absolutely. So if you could rewind the time, what would you do differently, starting the franchise and going through that whole process? So is there anything that you would maybe do differently, or maybe obviously for us, like we're looking at becoming a franchisor, like what is that one piece of advice that you would probably give or maybe change if you could do it all over again and tell yourself when you were maybe months or years back to do it differently?
As an aspiring franchisor, just to be specific, that's what you're talking about, as an aspiring franchisor. First off, I'll say this, and they kept saying this when we had 1, 2, and 3 franchisees. And our first 3, 4, 5 franchisees were within our internal networks, people we had great relationships with, and were also family. And so we had it easy, the first 3, 4, 5 franchisees. And I remember going to an emerging franchisors conference, and they talk. Basically it was just a complaining fest about franchisees. Because again, as a franchisor, you now have 2 sets of clients. You have your clients that are direct consumer clients, your mowing clients, your poop scooping clients, and then you also have franchisees that you are now responsible to. You're responsible to them, responsible to their businesses, and so they're also your client. And so we had it easy early on. But everybody kept saying, oh, you're going to make mistakes. Your first 10 franchisees, you're going to make mistakes. Now, we've been very fortunate. We're a franchise. We've got 13 franchisees, 14 franchisees as of this week. We awarded 2 territories in Tucson this week. So that's new. But usually, not for us, we've been very fortunate. We've got awesome franchisees. Usually, an aspiring franchisor makes the mistake of awarding territories and awarding units almost out of desperation to get going. They award them to people who aren't qualified. Again, we've been fortunate. We have not done that. We have an incredibly solid success rate. Our franchisees, we've been very fortunate. We've picked the right ones. We've done business with the right ones. So we haven't had any of this. This is industry knowledge, right? This is what we learned as we were growing. Is you oftentimes got to be very careful. Those first 1 or 2 or 3 franchisees may not be the best ones. Be mindful of that. You don't want to award a territory to everybody or to anybody. I should also mention, of our 3 original franchisees, only 1 of them remains. The other 2 ended up selling their businesses. Now, they made money. It was a great thing. We still have good relationships, but they've sold their businesses to that other franchisee, in our case. It was not anything to do with any kind of not being happy with their business or anything like that. It was life changes. And so that's something you want to look at as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you find that a lot of the same, maybe not the same questions, but the same type of vetting that you would for just maybe a high level employee underneath you?
Yeah.
Does that correlate over to kind of like choosing?
It can and it does. It can and it does. This has actually been an interesting lesson, and I'm still learning it. Admittedly, like I'm in the middle of it. I don't know what I don't know. It is very much so like that. Vetting a high level employee, and a high level employee is different depending on how big of a business you've got. So that's a matter of perspective as well. But it is a good correlation. The biggest difference is these people, your franchisee, you can't just fire your franchisee. You can fire any team member, any employee. If you're not happy with them, if y'all get in an argument and you just don't feel right about it, whatever, at any point, especially in the state of Texas, right to work state, you can fire somebody. You can let them go, move on. With a franchise, if you're not delicate with your relationships, if you don't recognize that they've got authority to, you might have the final say in most everything, but you've got to be delicate. And I've made that mistake. I haven't been delicate in every situation with franchisees, and we've had some tough conversations, but we always come back around. So you've got to recognize it's like that, Will, but it's almost, you could also correlate it to, maybe dramatic, you could correlate it to more of a business partnership and or a marriage. Granted, it's not forever, so I believe marriage is forever, so it's not quite a marriage, but because it's a 10-year agreement. But it's like a business partnership, probably more so. That's more of how I would relate it to hiring a high-level employee. It is more like a business partnership. It's like bringing in a minority partner. You've got ultimate say in so many ways, but that partner also has a lot of say.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Awesome.
I probably should have started with that. That would have answered the question faster.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, I want to obviously be respectful of your time. So No,
I'm good, and I'm good to go 5 or 10 minutes over if you want to as well. I know I told you we wouldn't get to all 8 questions, but I can go a little bit over if you want.
Yeah, I think honestly, probably the only maybe other question is like, and this would be specifically for someone that may be interested in you joining your franchisee. Like, what do you think separates, or what is your competitive advantage for your company that a franchisee may be looking at, to join with your franchise? Like, what is your
in other words, why would you buy into a Scoop Soldiers brand or franchise when you could either buy into other opportunities and or do it yourself on your own? Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack there. Not a lot. I can pack it up or do it pretty quickly here. But first, it's that support that I was talking about. In a lot of ways, with that support, all you've got to do is make sure your routes are dispatched every day, your people, the jobs are done, and that administrative overhead is handled for you. Now, it comes at a cost through royalty and administrative fees, but it's handled, and you're building your business, and I know a little bit about your journey and where you're at in your journey. You're in the middle of that right now. That administrative aspect is tough, and especially when you start off from zero. At what point do you need that administrative service? For a young poop scooping business, you start off with it from day one, and you never don't have that support. Tack on to that all of the decade plus, 12 dozen or more years of experience of what to do when a dog bites, when you end up with a dog bite, what to do in an auto accident, what to do, and I'm using those dramatic examples of injury, but what to do in any and every situation. We've got a dozen years behind us, and somebody that's usually starting out has zero. So that's really ultimately, and then compared to other franchise opportunities, we're the only founder-run pet waste removal franchise opportunity right now available. All of the others have been sold in some way or another to private equity or onto their third or fourth ownership parties. They're not energetic. They're not aggressive. We are. And our track record, not to mention the fact that all of them, none of them have much more than maybe one area where they're operating corporately, if that. We're operating right alongside. Last thing, enhanced territories. All of our corporate territories are available to buy. That literally is a business in a box. Now it adds to the cost. You got to buy those clients, but you can literally, and we've sold most of our franchise success, and our franchisees have bought what we call enhanced territories that already have existing clients. It is literally a business in a box. If you pay for it, and from day one you're in the black and you're cash flowing. And we've got businesses where they buy anywhere from 400 to start their enhanced territory, 400 clients. We've had some that buy as many as 1,500 clients to covering a whole area.
Wow, that's amazing.
I know that was a lot, but those are all the why you would get into the Scoop Soldiers opportunity.
Yeah, that's incredible. Even to just purchase into that franchise opportunity that's already there. There's already customers. I mean, from day one, like you said, cash flowing.
Yeah.
I think the other thing too that might be super beneficial, like especially is really just the support. Having those coaches in place to be there to ask those questions. I think it's huge.
It is enormous. And so I'll say one last thing to that. We've actually just done our first Chorby lawn care franchising launch on May 1st. 3 territories. Matt Sanders, which is a longtime fertilization technician. He led the department for a little while. Then he managed kind of his own route in Frisco, but he just took on Prosper, Denton, down to Flower Mound, Chorby Lawn Care into his own franchise. And so our fertilization program, our flower bed weed control program, our moisture manager, Hydrotain, if you're familiar with that product, and then our liquid aeration. Those 4 services that are all our Chorby Lawn Care program. If it's that and it's in that zip code, the client is actually getting serviced by a franchisee. And so he just launched on May 1st. He's kind of a test. We are not actively looking for franchisees for Chorby Lawn Care. We have a lot of catching up to do with our technology before that. Anyhow, I wanted to mention that. I do want to mention and end with one more thing. And you can cut this out if you want or not. But the one last thing I'll end with is franchising has been one of the most expensive experiences and businesses I have ever invested in. In other words, get ready. If you're an aspiring franchisor, it is really expensive.
Yeah. And
it's not just getting it launched. And that was the mistake I made. I say mistake. That might be another mistake I made, to answer your question from earlier. It's $100,000 and you can franchise your business. You can go and award territories. That's a ballpark, but you spend about $100,000, lawyers, consultants, 10 months or so worth of time building out your program, your pay. I mean, you're going to get stacks of paper that big, and you can franchise. That's $100,000. That's easy enough, right? That's usually not usually in my mind. $100,000. Okay, well, I'll invest this and then I'll be and that's not that simple. Once you get the opportunity, and this is where most aspiring franchisors end up stopping. Most aspiring franchisors never sell even a single opportunity. I think it's like 90%, might be 80%. 80% never sell a single opportunity because they spend that $100,000. They got their business. They got a successful plumbing business or a successful junk business or a successful whatever business. But they spend that $100,000, but then they realize they've got a full-time job running their business. They can't go and start a whole nother business. It's going to take a full-time job in its own right to get going. And so it just sits there and it never does anything.
Yeah.
That is the story of most aspiring franchisors. Breaking that barrier of 10 franchisees, breaking that barrier of 100 franchisees. We're in between there. We have 14 franchisees and about 40 units. But breaking those barriers, getting royalty sufficient where your costs are covered by your royalties that you're getting. Those are really, really hard barriers to break into. And for us, I can say it ended up breaking into the 7 figures to get there.
Wow.
And I would have never thought that early on. And by the way, that's for us because in a lot of ways we threw money at it. We didn't do the work ourselves. We hired people. We pay. If you go and you grind it out, it might take longer, but you can definitely do it for less than that. But you got to be a good salesperson. You got to be able to sell your vision.
Yeah.
I'll end there.
Awesome. Well, that is phenomenal content. That's phenomenal advice, just from somebody that's really been there. I definitely really appreciate you coming on. You've impacted my life. when you gave us advice on purchasing our headquarter shop area.
Good.
We
Good.
bought a house up in Pilot Point out in the county.
Working out well.
Yeah, just like you said, we closed in February, and yeah, we've been parking all our trucks up here.
Have you pissed off the neighbors yet?
No, not yet. We've been trying to be really friendly, you know. So it's worked out really well. So I definitely appreciate the advice.
Good. Well, I'm glad. Look, I like to pay it forward. I had a gentleman, you know him, Lawn Care Millionaire, co-founder of Service Autopilot. He mentored me the last 10 years as a fellow competitor, more than 10 years now. I met him in early 2011, middle 2011. But I got to pay it forward. So I'm happy to talk to anybody really in the industry. I'm excited about our franchise opportunities, but I'm also excited just to build awareness to our brands and the industry, especially the pet waste industry, because just so few people know it exists still. It's something that you probably known about for many years, but you know, talk to 10 dog owners and half of them don't even know it's a convenience they can pay for.
Right. Absolutely. So in the sense that there's a viewer out there that's watching that wants to get to know you more, do you have like a direct area that you would recommend someone to maybe reach out to you, or maybe your Facebook?
You can definitely, so you can look me up, Facebook. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. EJ McCoy should be very easy to find. EJMcCoy.com is kind of my personal brand website. That's going to tell you all about me, and probably about 100 different videos on there over the last 2 years. Some higher quality than others. I had better days than others. But you can learn much more about me there. But then also, I believe, now scoopsoldiers.com, and then you click on franchising. And then you also can go directly to scoopsoldiersfranchise.com.
Awesome.
So those are some different directions I can, just depending on what interested you.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and put that links in the description below for anybody that's interested.
That'd be awesome.
EJ, I appreciate you coming on. Ladies and gentlemen, you have the Pet Waste Millionaire. Seriously, thank you. Appreciate your time.
No, Will, thank you. Appreciate you, sir. And I look forward to seeing you down the road and on your journey and getting caught up.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.